The Young and the Restless spoilers next 2 week July 21st to August 1st 2025. It was supposed to be a holiday, a brief escape from the weight of Genoa City's endless betrayals, lies, and secret deals. But for Lily Winters and Audra Charles, the trip turned into something far darker, more threatening. And at the center of this slow-burning chaos stood Carter, a man now treated like a criminal by Victor Newman himself. But before diving into the wreckage of Lily's confrontation with a figure as terrifying as Hades, or the unraveling of Carter's cover, it is necessary to explore the strange and provocative dance between Kyle Abbott and Audra Charles, a tango that began with deception and might just end in dangerous temptation. On the night of July 18th, what began as playful rebellion between Kyle and Audra quickly spiraled into something far more complicated. Kyle, still bruised from his emotional entanglement with Clare Newman, was vulnerable, and Audra, always opportunistic, was exactly the kind of woman who knew how to step into that emotional vacuum. Though her loyalty to Nate Hastings had never been ironclad, what she did during that trip went far beyond anything Victor had explicitly ordered. The instructions were simple: seduce Kyle, dismantle his bond with Clare, and return. But Audra, true to form, went too far. By the next morning, both Audra and Kyle were tangled in regret and half-truths. They had shared more than a bed, they had shared something intimate, something dangerous. Kyle was the first to voice it: they should forget what happened. Audra, her lipstick still smudged from the night before, laughed it off. But her eyes told another story. She wasn't planning to forget. She was planning to leverage. Victor's manipulation had always been precise, brutal, and effective. Audra was his instrument, his scalpel, sharp and ruthless. Her mission was never about Kyle, really. It was about Clare. Disrupting her life, destabilizing her identity, punishing her for aligning herself with the Newman dynasty while still representing a wildcard in Victor's legacy. But nowhere in Victor's plan had there been room for Nate. Audra's betrayal had bled into multiple arenas, and now her silence became her shield. She knew that if Nate discovered what she'd done, not just the affair, but the lies surrounding Damien Kane's death, he would never forgive her. Because Audra knew more than she let on. She had been present when the news broke about Damien. She had seen the tension in Victor's jaw, the way he quickly ended a call when she entered the room. She had heard whispers through locked doors, partial sentences like "erase the footage and don't let Lily talk." And then came the unexpected: Carter's downfall. Carter, for all his discretion, had always been a mystery. A shadow at Victor's beck and call, his allegiance was never fully defined. He had served many masters in the past, but none more volatile than Victor himself. And now, with the web tightening around Damien's murder, Victor made a decision: Carter was expendable. He had begun asking questions, pressing too hard for answers, suggesting that the trail leading back to Damien's final night didn't end with Nick, but pointed in another, far more dangerous direction. Victor saw this as disloyalty. And disloyalty was a crime he did not forgive. So Carter was cast aside, accused of interference, monitored like a traitor. Victor confronted him in the conservatory of the Chancellor Mansion, calling him a liability in a suit. The words were sharp, the tone even sharper. Carter didn't flinch. He simply nodded and disappeared into the shadows, a man now on his own. Meanwhile, Lily and Audra, still on their so-called vacation, encountered something far worse than guilt or Carter's dissent. They met Hades. Or at least, that's how he introduced himself. A Frenchman with no past and too much knowledge about the night Damien died. He claimed to know the truth. He claimed to have video. But his price wasn't money, it was silence. He warned them, quietly, with a grin that didn't reach his eyes: if either of them revealed what he had said, someone would die. And in that moment, Audra realized they were in far deeper than she thought. What began as a game had now become a war. Kyle, back in Genoa City, couldn't focus. His guilt was clawing at his throat. Clare sensed something, she always did, but he lied. He told her the trip was uneventful. He said he barely saw Audra. And Claire, already emotionally scarred from her own demons, believed him. She wanted to believe him. Kyle wanted to believe himself. But guilt is a parasite. And it fed on both of them. Audra, however, wasn't wallowing. She was plotting. The night with Kyle had planted something. A new avenue. A new form of power. She now had leverage over Kyle, knowledge that Claire would never forgive him for. She could use it. Or she could bury it. And her decision would depend entirely on who offered her the better future, Kyle, Nate, or Victor. Back in Victor's circle, the atmosphere was shifting. Faith and chance had begun to erode. Phyllis had started asking questions about the authenticity of Nick's arrest. Lily had stopped speaking publicly, retreating into silence, working on something no one could see. And Carter, rogue now, had begun sending anonymous emails, hinting that Damien's killer had connections far deeper than anyone imagined. That the real culprit wasn't Nick, wasn't even Kane, but someone within the Newman circle who had used all the others as pawns in a larger game. The question now wasn't just who killed Damien. It was, who's controlling the board? And what would happen when the pieces started to move on their own? The shadows on Kane's so-called Citizen Island were no longer metaphorical. By the time Audra Charles and Lily Winters began hearing the sharp, rhythmic rustling in the palm-lined distance, their nerves were already frayed to breaking. It had started with a simple whisper of unease. The kind that seeps into your bones and refuses to be explained. But now, it had grown into something far more primal, dread. The air itself seemed heavier. Every creaking step, every flicker of wind, carried with it the scent of danger. When Audra asked, in a hushed and increasingly desperate tone, "Who's out there?" It wasn't out of paranoia. It was instinct. Because something, or someone, had changed the rules of the game. And fear had become their only compass. Claire Newman was gone. That much was now clear. Claire's fragile heart, wrapped in years of emotional trauma, had been cracked once again. The revelation of Kyle's betrayal, an affair with Audra under the orders of Victor himself, had left her spiraling. No word. No messages. Her hotel room on the island had been abandoned, her belongings undisturbed, except for a single sheet of paper on the nightstand with only one word written, "Enough." Whether she had escaped or been taken was unclear. But one thing was certain, the island was no longer safe. And with Claire's silence, a chilling question hung in the air, had the ghost of Damien Kane claimed another soul? Elsewhere, in the cold, fortified silence of Victor Newman's private villa in Nice, Carter was facing a different kind of storm. Victor sat across from him, still as stone, eyes sharp like a predator measuring a kill. Beside him stood Chance Chancellor, fists clenched, temper simmering beneath the surface. Together, they played good cop bad cop, except neither had any intention of being good. The questions came fast and brutal. Did you help Kane cover up Damien's murder? Did you tamper with the surveillance footage? Are you still working for Dumas, or are you working against us all now? Carter, caught in the center of a chessboard he no longer controlled, offered no emotion. "I followed orders," he said, voice low. "I did what was necessary. But I didn't kill Damien." That denial, cold and immediate, echoed like a riddle. Did it mean Kane had killed Damien and Carter only helped after the fact? Or was Carter being thrown under the bus by someone far higher on the pyramid? Victor wasn't satisfied. He leaned in, eyes narrowing. "We trusted you," he said, voice nearly a whisper. "And now I want the truth, not the filtered version you give your handlers." Chance slammed a folder down. Photos of Damien's blood, autopsy reports, bank transactions linked to Carter's offshore accounts. "Tell us," he barked. "Did Kane kill him? Or did you?" But Carter didn't flinch. Not once. "I didn't kill him," he repeated. "But I know who did." He looked up then, eyes glazed with a mix of defiance and doom. And if I talk, I won't live to see the next sunrise. Back on the island, Lily and Audra were no longer sleeping. They took turns watching the door. Their food had been delivered late. A boat that was scheduled to bring them off the island had been delayed due to mechanical failure. And the local staff? New faces. Faces neither of them recognized. The island that was once meant to be a private retreat, a seductive promise from Kane, had become a gilded prison. Lily, having endured too many lies already, turned to Audra and asked what she had done, what she had really done with Kyle, with Victor, with Kane. Audra denied everything. But her eyes gave her away. There was more. And she was terrified it would come back to haunt her. This isn't about Damien anymore, Lily said, standing by the window. This is about survival. Meanwhile, back in the chaos of Nice, Nick Newman, finally released from jail, had been placed under house arrest. Though technically free, he was anything but. The walls of his estate were filled with cameras, agents, and whispers he couldn't decipher. And then Carter came. They hadn't seen each other since the courtroom breakdown. Carter appeared without warning, stepping through the front gate like a man possessed. "We need to talk," he said. Nick, exhausted and boiling with rage, didn't hesitate. He grabbed Carter by the collar and shoved him against the wall. "Talk?" Nick spat. "You want to talk after you helped frame me?" But Carter didn't fight back. He let Nick rage. Let him scream. And when it was over, when Nick collapsed onto the couch, breath ragged, Carter leaned forward and said, "You're not safe. Neither of us are. Damien's death wasn't random. And Kane's just a piece of something bigger." He handed Nick a flash drive. This is what I didn't give Victor. It's a piece of the video, the part where the killer walks out. It's not you. It's not Kane. But it's someone we both know." Nick didn't move for a long time. Then, slowly, he inserted the drive into his laptop. The screen flickered, then showed a distorted figure leaving Damien's room. The footage froze on one frame, the killer turning just enough to reveal a scar along his jawline. Nick's eyes widened. "No," he whispered. "It can't be him." Back on the island, a knock echoed through the hallway. Lily and Audra stood frozen, neither daring to move. "Housekeeping," a voice said softly. But there was no housekeeping on the island, not anymore. And somewhere, deep within a hidden control room beneath the island's wine cellar, Kane watched everything through a wall of screens. He turned to the man beside him, the same man who had left Damien's suite with blood on his coat, and said, "They're getting too close." The man nodded. "Then it's time to end it."